Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the No Laying Up podcast. Cody here today, and we are going to be covering the 2024 LPGA season from start to finish. I've been joined with my main man, Mr. Big Randy, fresh off of his nuptials in the great state of Texas, I might add. Randy, how is the new life treating you, brother?
New life is great. We had a fabulous wedding weekend down in Austin, Texas. I appreciate not only you, but the entire NLU workforce employee team, minus Solly, I should say. Solly has his hands full at home, but
Very much.
no, in all sincerity, it was the perfect weekend. Both my now wife, which is going to take me a while to get used to saying that. We were talking on the drive home, the long drive home, that we wouldn't have changed a thing. And I think had you told me that that's where we would be on the drive home after our wedding weekend, I could have worried a whole lot less over these last couple months. It would have saved me a lot of stress and anxiety, but it was great. Austin is a very cool city, and it was wonderful to get to celebrate with you guys and all our friends and family.
Very well said. Also joining us is Mr. TC Tron. How is the Florida weather treating you?
Weather's not good right now, not quite as
Mm,
bad as it was in Austin for Randy's
it was
wedding.
not good.
God,
I don't even think I would've changed that though, Randy. I think it was
I
very
know.
much, I think that kinda lent itself to going out and imbibing some libations and hanging out with one another, you
Yeah.
know?
It
So,
forces people to be in like tighter groups
yeah.
too. Everybody just kind of wants to be bundled up. But speaking of bundled up, guys, it's also Christmas season. The holidays are here. And I want to give a real big shout out to our presenting sponsor of this entire year's LPGA Tour schedule. They've provided us opportunities to go cover events, to talk about it as much as we have. And that, of course, is Yeti. You can check them out at yeti.com. They got a plenty of shopping options still there, whether it's backpacks, duffels, cups, coolers, you name it. You find any option there, all customizable, and still plenty of time to get it shipped for the holiday season. So please check them out at yeti.com. The other person coming in, I love that. Customizable.
There you
Great cut
go.
there, TC.
There you have it, folks.
The other person coming in hot this holiday season is our partner at Titleist. And I want to give a quick shout out to them and really big. I think the question is, it's funny. One of my favorite Twitter things that Solly does every year is these weird golf related GIF thread that he gets going. But I got a question for you. What's the best golf related gift that you guys have ever got, TC?
I can tell you very, very, very specifically, it was my Titleist 975F
Mm,
3-wood. It was a 14 either 14 or 14.5 degree. I think I had that even before the 975D. That was the kind of the first golf club that I ever got that was this was back in like 1997 maybe, 98, like probably late probably Christmas 97, and, I was just getting really into golf, and I freaking love that thing. I played that same.
steel, graphite in it.
No, it had graphite. I think it had
The Pro Force.
it might have been the Pro Force, it might have been even be pre-Pro Force. Or
Mm.
no, it was the it was a Graphalloy. It wasn't the green one. It was like kind of the purple one. But yeah, I played that thing all the way through high school. I like you couldn't take that thing out of my bag. So
Big?
Yeah, this is gonna sound crazy, but truly, I think the best gifts I got growing up would be like a box of Pro V1s, just because those things are gold, man. And for a lot of my life, I wasn't making enough money to just
To
get
go
new Titleist Pro V1s
right.
whenever I needed them. So it was like, man, if I could find one out playing, that was always a joy. But I knew Christmas time, my mom would always give me a new box. And one year specifically, my kids, or my sister's kids, my niece and nephew at the time, went into the box and like used Sharpies and like designed all the golf balls, and
Oh,
and
that's
that
off
was
the
cool.
really
Waldorf.
cool.
Yeah.
So that's always a special one. And now I got to say shout out to Titleist because, like,
Mhm.
we kind of get a lot of Pro V1, so that's cool.
Exactly. It's Christmas every week for the big guy. But if anybody out there is interested, the 2 dozen holiday pack is still available at Titleist.com. By ordering, or excuse me, by purchasing the 2 dozen holiday pack, you save $10 with that, whether that's the Pro V1 pack or the Pro V1 X pack, while supplies last. And they look great. You barely, you don't even really have to put wrapping paper on it if you buy one of those bad boys and put it under there, because no one has ever complained if you are gifted a dozen Pro V1s or Pro V1 X's for Christmas. That's for
Truly.
sure. Anything else you guys want to shout out? Big.
The wedges, I would
Yeah.
I would shout out Titleist wedges. I think the thing that I have learned working with Titleist that sticks with me is just to get those wedges replaced about every year, as often as you would your grips on those. That's a something I never knew prior and something I had never done prior. So I would just shout out the Vokey wedges. They've been a great addition to my bag.
Guys, I'll tell a quick story from earlier this week. Got home on Sunday night from Austin, from Randy's wedding, and just felt awful, like, truly. Like, it was a combination of, yeah, like, we drank a lot for 3 days, but also, like, just didn't sleep all that much, up late, early flight on Sunday, got delayed, all that stuff. So, get home Sunday night, my parents leave, they said, "Hey, kids are all yours."
Yeah,
We're driving back to
we
Atlanta.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I forgot we had a Titleist shoot on Monday here in town, and I wake up Monday, I still like, I might have felt worse on Monday. I think I went to bed at 9 p.m. on Sunday. I felt even worse on Monday and didn't sleep very well. And first thing out on Monday, I get out there and it's like, you're playing 3 or 4 holes with Ludwig. I'm like, man, I'm not playing very well right now, like, lately. I didn't really warm up all that much, and I go out there and I just absolutely piped a couple with my
Nice.
GT2. So it was very much it could have gone very, very poorly, but played well, didn't embarrass myself. And but man, what a way to start the week on Monday of just like, hey, you're gonna go play a few holes with Ludwig, and it was Solly and I playing alt shot against
I
him.
can't
So we'll have
imagine.
that video coming out in a future, probably the next month or 2. But yeah, I didn't need any coffee that morning, I'll put it that way.
For sure. So it doesn't matter if it's balls, wedges, drivers, irons, you name it. Please, everybody, head to Titleist.com. And I would say check out their fitting selector tool. And if outside of this fitting selector tool, sign up for a fitting. Go get
Yeah.
fit. Doesn't matter if you're going to go to a fit crew location, an authorized fitter, or try to get a time at TPI. Go get fit. It's the most important way and the fastest way to play better golf.
Can
Guys,
I can I just add, sorry, on the fitting? I know I just want to say, you guys, I hope everybody listening knows, like, I am not a natural gearhead. Like, just going to get fit wouldn't naturally be something that, like, even excites me. I've done a few Titleist fittings, one here in Denver, with their area reps. It's awesome. And they have me hitting 3 woods and 5 woods and irons that, like, the joke at the wedding, my brother-in-law was talking to another buddy. My handicap's down to a 5.9 right now. And
ooh.
it was like, no, he still has the same shitty swing. So it must be, getting fit into the proper equipment. So all credit to Titleist. If you've ever thought about it, let me just be the one to push you to try that in the new year.
Absolutely. Well, guys, like I said, we got a pretty robust agenda that we're going to get through to break down everything that happened in the 2024 calendar year for the LPGA Tour. But surprise announcement last week. I'd say surprise when it actually happened. I think it's something that we saw for a long time coming now, but effective January 9th, Commissioner Mollie Marcoux Samaan will no longer be in her role as commissioner of the LPGA Tour. This was announced last Monday, December 2nd. And like I said, shocked of when it came out, but not really shocked that it happened.
Yeah, I don't think we were necessarily rooting for it. It was just kind of, hey, here's the kind of reading the tea leaves and what you're hearing from various players and other stakeholders at the tour, and kind of around golf. It just seemed like, I don't think she lost the locker room, because I don't think she ever really gained the locker room. Does that track with you guys?
think that's right. We just kind of piece together stuff we hear from a ton of different parties involved. And one, I think it's worth acknowledging again, just to follow Mike Wan,
Yeah.
who not only like won the locker room, but I think like conquered the locker room. I've never heard anybody associated, player, caddy, administrator, like speak ill of Mike Wan. I do want to just acknowledge, I think it was always going to be really tough to fill those shoes. And yeah, when you don't kind of keep up the same level of engagement and clear and consistent communication from the Juan regime to Mollie coming in, I think that's where it's just there were always seemed to be fissures just with like lack of communication and not quite knowing what was going on. And then you sprinkle in the very public kind of fuck ups, for lack of a better word, highlighted at the Solheim Cup this year with the transportation fiasco. The founders, right, losing Cognizant as a title sponsor of like one of your marquee tour owned events. It just seems like the CME stuff, sorry, is another very public one. It just seemed like it was everything was pointing this way. And Cody, like you said, not surprising, perhaps the timing a little bit so, but it seemed like it was headed this way for the last several months. Does that kind of mirror what you're thinking, Cody?
Absolutely. I think if you go back and look at this tenure as short as it has been, she set herself up to fail from the very beginning. And I understand she's coming from an academic background where it has a lot to do with fundraising, which you would naturally, and I'm sure the LPGA board thought would include, her being very much a kind of, a marketing. She's constantly selling whatever brand that she is representing, and comparing her, and I understand it's a large task. I don't think anybody's ever going to be able to fill Mike Wan's shoes when it comes to marketing, because that's what his expertise is in. But it really just comes down to communication, and it seemed like her team never really got ahead of communication. And I don't know, from getting to spend time with Mollie, we know that isn't necessarily a strength of hers, and she took it very much as like, I am representing this tour, and really diving into the business side of it. But she never really identified somebody who would take that marketing person and to be that vocal
Like a
leader.
trusted lieutenant.
Yes, like it really, I think it was a everything, all these failures kind of break down into the operational side of it. And I understand, and I'm not saying that Molly, should still be in the position, but I also think that there's other people within the LPGA tour that hopefully are held accountable for not, stepping up when they needed them to most, especially when you look at this. So I think if you go again back to the beginning, and waiting whatever it was 4 or 6 months of just the information gathering phase before she really did anything, and then you get to a couple CME issues, whether that's not showing up to a big party
Duff,
date,
man.
dinner that's very important to the sponsor, and like everybody knows this, which is like the LPGA tour, their bread and butter is like these pro-am dinners. Like, I just don't understand kind of the shortfall there to Flask and the locker room situation in a parking lot. And I understand that, like, maybe that's always been the way, but they're also, when you tell the players things are new, things are changing, that you want things to continue to change. And then Solheim, it's just like there's no PR side of the LPGA tour, because they seem to find themselves in like these little micro crisis all the time. And for some reason, us being at the Solheim Cup, and I remember that specifically, like that. Yeah, I understand that Molly is taking that on the nose because she is overall the one in charge. But it did not need to wait as long as it did for anybody from her team to get information out
Yep.
and steps and a plan on how they're going to fix it. And it seemed like when things that happened quite often came up, it was like she maybe tightened everything down to where the only voice that was getting out for was hers. And I don't know. It's just It wasn't a good situation.
Well, then even like we're sitting there at dinner and they sent out a tweet or a post about, hey, we're gonna like I don't know. I feel like the details kept changing, right? They
They
sent out a
did.
tweet, then they deleted it, then they updated it without one of the elements of, hey, we're not,
We're not
I can't remember if
reinforcing
it was
people anymore.
honoring or yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So, just kinda like it's not from a confident posture, I think is kind of where I would come back to, and it hasn't been from the start, right? It felt like kind of a
I
left
think that's
field
well said.
choice from the start, and then I feel like I don't know, I mean, I think it's a pretty relatively dysfunctional organization to begin with, like, I think Juan probably papered over certain things or, I don't think they were necessarily well like, for instance, the TV stuff. Like the PGA Tour is negotiating on your behalf as a strategic partner. The LPGA has gotten nothing out of that, right? They're paying to be on network TV. They're getting shitty time slots on Golf Channel. They're like, and exposure is everything, right? And figuring out how to evolve that in the midst of what is currently we're in year what 3 or 4 of the PGA Tour's contract, like, nothing's gonna change there. They're gonna have more power than ever over Golf Channel. I don't think any progress was made there. Like, I know, ESPN Plus was, a big deal or PR wise, but I don't think from a juice perspective, it's like, "Hey, how do you get people in?" You get people in by, like, them knowing where you're located and being on, right? There's too much tape delayed stuff. There's too much, just shitty coverage, right? Even like KPMG the last few years of when it's been just a skeleton crew and I know Molly put a lot of emphasis on the content team and beefed that up quite a bit, content and marketing and all of that. That's up to what 35 or 40 people
Yep.
and as a line item that's doubled or more than doubled in size on the LPGA side and I don't see maybe the proof is in the pudding in future years, but I don't see though like that manifesting any results as of yet. If anything, they seem to be more behind than ever as far as capitalizing on someone like Nelly or Lydia, having a career year, and it's just we're just left talking about what ifs instead of, celebrating successes.
So in the press release that came out announcing Mollie's resignation, they always talk about the good things that she did. And so I want to read from that press release. I'm quoting it. Under her leadership, the LPGA's prize fund increased by over 90%, and athlete earnings reached record highs, with average earnings for the top 100 players doubling from just over 570,000 in 2021 at the beginning of Mollie's tenure to more than 1 million in 2024. And then it talks about, she prioritized athlete well-being. They had a number of miscut stipends, domestic travel stipends, better access to health and physical resources. So we can talk about that, but I just thought it was kind of telling that the next line off the course, the LPGA achieved record fan engagement with global audiences hitting all-time highs in 2024 and strategic partnerships enhancing fan understanding and growth. And like that's the only thing talking about like anything from a fan perspective. And I just think it's telling, how I remember Mollie's tenure is yes, we've seen a lot of like purse increases. I think Mike Wan laid really good foundation to, bring in a lot of these sponsors. We've seen, the USGA and the RNA and some of the bigger entities in golf really prioritize raising purses. But I just think it's telling, and I think, as we look forward from my standpoint, and Tron, I think this echoes what you were saying with the broadcast. Like the broadcast is the vehicle to get your game in front of, millions and millions of people. The in tournament fan experience is one thing. And I do think the LPGA does a pretty good job, week to week with that respect. But until they can fix and figure out how to have a broadcast partner that's truly like investing in the product alongside of these purse investments, it just feels like these purse increases, don't get me wrong, they're great for the players, but it comes back to like the fan perspective. I'm not seeing much, I'm not realizing a ton of this like growth, and it's not necessarily easier for me to find the women's game and to get really invested and to learn more about the players. And I think that's ultimately not only where Mollie like really falls short. I mean, again, it's like a one throwaway sentence in the press release, but I think it's also like what whoever they end up hiring as the inbound commissioner, like this is a big freaking deal. And I think it starts with the broadcast and how you deliver the product week to week. And I wish I could say I was confident. I wish I could say I had a lot of great ideas. It seems like they're in a shitty contract and maybe nothing changes until the contract runs out and they have a chance to like totally renegotiate something. I don't know. Cody, that's a lot of stuff. You can take whatever you want from that.
Well, we talk about the television deal, and you're right. It's hard when you're, they're packaged with the PGA Tour. They're really getting they're the fourth option when it comes to live professional golf because every single one of PGA Tour elements are going to be there. And I just want to be
Sometimes the
noted.
fifth option when they have
True.
double PGA events,
True.
because then you still
Yeah.
have Champs Tour and KF, the Corn Ferry.
And there seems to like you also that would be okay, but they also haven't been able to break down like that peacock wall, I guess you would say, is like we always say this, like just show the golf. We're just I mean, it's crazy. Unlike the PGA Tour where we're saying like harping on commercials and like improving the product, we're really still at the stage on the LPGA Tour where like just show Nelly winning fucking 7 tournaments, man. Like we just want to watch her hit the golf ball. And even the LPGA investing their own monies into ESPN Plus, but NBC not allowing or I don't know where it is. I'm very curious on where the breakdown of why are they not getting additional Peacock hours because I'm sure there's a cost, but you got to do something. Again, we talk about growth in women's professional sports across the board. There's been years and years and years of lead up invested into capturing these moments and then, getting these returns on it. And it just feels like the LPGA Tour is not there. Now, we mentioned a lot of things about Mollie. The one thing that is a glowing example that sticks out to me is where we're at with the LPGA and the Ladies European Tour. And
Yep.
we literally have gotten zero information post a vote that was supposed to happen on the ladies European side last December that was broken up for a multitude of different reasons. There's a lot of different people and groups that really put their thumb on the scale and made it so that vote didn't happen. Primarily, we could say Golf Saudi or Performance 54, but really there's nothing since then. And honestly, by talking to both LPGA like staff and insiders, it seems like Molly never even really brought that back up. Like it was one of those things where it's like, no, 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 it's fine. But if you want to talk about growth, and I remember I said this when it was one of the questions on Randy's 24 for 24, the questions that we led this season off with was what was going to happen with the LPGA and the LET merger. And I said this and I still think it's true. The women's game has an opportunity to do this global tour that we've been
Yeah.
talking about. And they need to do it by more co-sanctioned events. Now, they already have a couple that are out there, but there's no reason why on the second Asian swing when the LPGA Tour is in China to Korea to Malaysia, that a week later the ladies European is doing the exact same thing. Make those embrace your fans in Asia. That is where the most growth potential is. All right, have more coast sanctioned events in Europe. Again, why is the Irish Open not a coast sanctioned event? The Scottish is. It's awesome, but there
Yeah.
needs to be more. And then really looking at this time of year and figuring out what they can do with the events in Australia, because there's some really good women's events, and we can talk about the Aussie Open sometime else. And uncoupling that from the men's side, but like they have the opportunity here with a lot of people willing to invest in women's athletics to really take this thing to the next level. And it would be a win-win across the board.
I agree. I think it's kind of like, if it's if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, it's broken. So you can just dismantle it a little bit and put it back together, you know, in a new way. I will say, like, they brought in that money from, like, they raised outside capital as well. Like, I would be curious to see, like, all right, the next person's coming into that. What are you going to do with it? Right. And I
Right.
think I'm curious to know too, like, hey, board members, or, is it a pretty reflective experience here of, hey, what did we get wrong with the last one? What did Molly not have to succeed? What do we need to provide the next commissioner with? Like you said, with the insurance stuff, or with, I think she had a lot of small wins, but they didn't ladder up to a larger thematic or a story that she could tell. Nor, I think, and on a very basic level, like just talking to a lot of the ladies out there, she just didn't have any relationships with the players. Like,
Yeah.
it's just straight up, like, just didn't know them as like human beings, right? And I think that's a pretty, I think, coming from the collegiate athletic world, like, you would think that would be a strength, right? But I think bringing somebody in from outside of golf is tough, right? Like, you're coming in, they kind of, outside of golf, outside of the LPGA, and candidly too, like, they're down in Daytona, right? It's kind of a,
Yeah.
it's like, all right, a lot of the people live in Orlando. Like, do they need to be in Daytona? Right? Should they move here? Should they move to New York? Should they move, somewhere else to attract better talent as well? You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
real quick before, I think there's probably a pretty long list of things that we could recommend or say this is what we think you would explore. But real quick to close out, I really think I'm more fascinated because what is published on LPGA Tour or LPGA.com is the same thing that we know was emailed to players, every member of the LPGA Tour. Now, it's not really there are quotes in there from Molly, but this is very much led by the board. Okay. So I mean, an all person, she was fired. She was relieved of her job. And I think it's one of those things where it just sucks again, but like, I don't understand why that part of it is kind of swept over because in order to show growth, you need to identify what the issues are and move forward. Now, the other thing is,
I
so
mean, they're
Liz,
they're gonna let her. They're not gonna kick her while she's down. They're
I'm
gonna let her
not saying
resign,
kick,
and
not saying kick by
I
any means,
The
but I
biggest
hope
tell there too, sorry, was the Terry Duffy just
yes,
glowing praise before
yes.
CME for
scary
it was like,
Terry.
"Wait a second." Yeah,
Well, honestly, we
that's
thought like, oh, post CME, like we're like, oh, Molly, she's fine. She's gonna make it another year because we're expecting it before. Really,
yeah.
more news before that, which understanding why they waited. They named Liz Moore is going to be the acting chief executive officer. She right now is the chief legal and technology officer of the LPGA Tour. Now, I find this fascinating. She's their lawyer, and of all people who they have selected, the board has selected. They jumped over the LPGA Tour COO, Ricky Lashley,
Lasky.
Lasky, which is very curious decision on my part because again it goes back to a lot of the things that I believe kind of have gone wrong have been more on the operational side. Very, very interesting. Now, who knows who's going to be, their names in the hat here, but I've kind of I've kind of done a complete reversal on one person that I think honestly now is would be fantastic, and that's Alex Armas from the LET. She's a former player. She
What?
understands this. Yes. I honestly, if you think about it, think about everything that she has done to maintain the LET, to grow their purses, to bring in more from the bottom line. She does not care. She's truly driving and bringing that tour on her back. Look at the events that we go to that are ran by the LET. They're absolutely amazing. And I think when you're looking at somebody, because this is a job that most people aren't going to volunteer for, why not look over there?
TC, your
Whoa.
reaction. I was not
Yeah, I mean,
expecting
as
that
someone
name.
who attended the 2023 Solheim Cup at Finca
Mhm.
Courtesan, I think that in and of itself is disqualifying. I don't care that the national federation in Spain was kind of the operator on that. Yeah, God, I really don't know where to go from there. I mean, even like small fires, like uh, there's like small wins, but there's also like you guys said earlier, there's all these just little small fires of like Q school, like the venue and the condition of the course, like embarrassing for the first and second stage, right? Like they're playing in
Yeah.
Arizona and 115-degree temperatures on greens that like aren't even alive, right? So it's just it's like not even letting stuff bubble up to where that's an issue. Just and I get it. Like there's limited resources and all that, but you've beefed up the content or you beefed up the marketing or whatever, maybe you need to beef up ops and tournament, kind of the tournament department there and then build out from there. But I think from a candidate perspective, like I know John Padani from the US, who's now at the USGA, he's their chief commercial officer. I know he was at the PGA Tour for a long time, and he was previously with the LPGA and kind of set, I think, like Mollie's big bullet point of purse, like overall purse growth started under this guy. Like he was in that
Yep.
was his purview and I think that's probably a natural thing. And I think last time he applied and did not get the job. Maybe that's because he's a dude, right? Maybe it's because they felt like, hey, we want a female commissioner for the LPGA, which makes complete sense, right? But I think at this point, it's such a critical juncture. I don't care if you're from Mars. Like, if you can do the job and do it effectively, like that's what's important right now at this juncture. Alex Baldwin from the Corn Ferry Tour has been floated as well. I know she pulled her hat out of the ring uh, last time for it. Was a candidate, but I like and kind of has been on all sides of it. But I think bottom line is you need someone who's above and beyond as far as communication goes, because
Mhm.
that's what you gotta hire great lieutenants. Like that was one of the things, Cody. We didn't know, hey, who else is making decisions or who's actually accomplishing or going out and doing the tactical stuff that Molly, like, hey, what is your platform? And B, who's accomplishing all this tactical stuff? And I think you need someone to communicate, hey, what's the plan? Get everybody aligned around it, and then be able to hire, two, three, four people to really manage those teams to go do it. And then your job is, hey, you know what? I'm gonna figure out what the future looks like with the Saudis and with the LET and the global tour. I'm gonna figure out how to, I'm going to talk to all the sponsors. I'm going to talk to Terry Duffy. I'm going to talk to, Cognizant. I'm going to talk to, anybody. Like there's rumors out there that Amazon wanted to invest a bunch of money and spend a bunch of money. And they were basically told no, or told to, hey, it has to look like this. Then there's not a whole lot of creativity for how to get them in the bucket. So I think that's part of the
Same
thing is like,
same thing with other events. Other certain
yeah,
tournaments wanted to elevate their purse and keep it, under that major purse mark, but really get up into the, 5, 6, $7 million
yeah.
mark and pay some of these. And she basically shot it down because you can't have a tall poppy out there. She didn't want the other people who are not spending that much to feel bad. I don't know.
Which it
Big, what do you think?
No, I think TC, something you said about just I never knew Mollie's like overarching objectives. It
Yep.
just whether it was her fault or the people at the LPGA or I don't know, but it never truly felt like I knew, hey, this is my commissionership. These are my most pressing issues. Besides, like, hey, it's great if purses go up. And again, like, I don't want to diminish that because that's a big deal for the players, which obviously is important. But my biggest frustration was just like at some point, I think the commissioner has to speak to the fans
Yes.
and tell a story of like, this is what we want to do to improve the product from your standpoint.
It's the same
And
thing that like Jay's failed at too, right?
right.
And I think part of it as well is like she came in what she was. I think they chose her in May 2021. She
Yeah.
started, end of 2021. And so, yeah, that first year, assess the landscape, figure it out. But I don't think, after that 12 months is up, like do a lot of like I think I remember saying that, like, I'm doing a lot of listening, right? I'm on a listening
Yeah.
tour. That's great. Like, cool. After that tour, tell me your plan. Tell me
Right.
what your priorities are. Because you can't do it all either. Does it start with TV? Does it start with the schedule? Does it start with kind of player empowerment? Like, what does it start with, and then how does it waterfall down from there?
And it
She
was
has she
exciting.
has said it's been about players' purses, and I do want to, you
Yeah.
know, purses have gone up, guarantees have gone up, travel stipends are a thing, health insurance is now a
Yeah.
thing. There are wins.
But again, it's like not telling that story
Correct.
cohesively or effectively. And then also on the flip side of it, you've got stuff, you've got issues with, obviously Cognizant leaving, or like Founders being unsponsored is kind of unfathomable to me, right?
It's nuts.
Yeah.
It's
It's
not
it's
good.
not good. I was really excited for Mollie's tenure, I think because she was coming in completely outside of the world of golf
Yeah.
and
Like
didn't
rethinking.
have
You have a blank
maybe a
slate.
lot of the preconceived notions and biases. And like you said, Tron, like go on this listening tour and like really tell us what's wrong with the outside critical eye, and then sell me on how we're gonna move everything forward. And I just thought that was always absent. And from talking to lots of players, it seemed like there wasn't that communication with them either. So yeah, at the end of the day, just not a lot of excitement, not a lot of allies in and around the locker room. And the tour and the board finds itself with a new search. And
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting.
Which I think the tour and the board specifically need to take a long look in the mirror of like, hey, what do we need to provide the next commissioner with? Or, you know, eh, like we're a big part of why this failed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I understand that there's a lot of voices, and it's a very finicky situation, week in, week out on the LPGA tour. But I remember, TC, when we go back to that listening tour, and one of the biggest complaints, pretty much right out of the gate, were the players believing that she wasn't listening to them. And
Yeah.
like, okay, so if this is your main focus and you're already failing on it right out of the gate, it's going to be interesting. Anyway, guys, next year, looking forward to 2025. It's the 75th anniversary of the LPGA Tour. So if there is a time to capitalize on it, with Nelly Korda, with Gino Titicol, and Lilia Vu hopefully being strong and healthy again, Lydia Ko with an amazing year, 75th, you would think that this would be the year that they can capitalize on it. So there's going to be 35 total events. That does not include the International Crown that's back in Korea, and of course the Grant Thornton. They're paying for $131 million total. Now that number is highly, that's inflated because the majors that they do not control, the three of them, are really, you know, pushing that up and helping them out big time. But overall, purses are up. A couple new events, Black Desert Championship in Utah. The last time the LPGA Tour was in Utah was in 1964. We're going back to Mexico. No, it is not the Lorena Ochoa tournament, but we're going to the Mayakoba Open. And then we're going to get first looks. The U.S. Women's Open, of course, is at Erin Hills. KPMG is going to be at Fields Ranch East. We are going to Royal Porthcawl for the AIG. And Founders is now in Bradenton, Florida, unsponsored.
So with the Founders, it's February 6th this year. It's the second event of the season. Do we think Mollie's last official day is January 9th? I guess I'd be surprised if they name a new commissioner before the Founders. What do you guys think? It's a tough look. One, you're moving the Founders out of May from a nice course in Upper Montclair, New Jersey. The purse is slashed because it's unsponsored this year. And if they run the Founders like without a commissioner in the 75th year of the LPI, it just, the optics aren't great.
I mean, they might as well call the founders like the drive on. It's the same. It's essentially
It
like
is. Yeah, it is the
throwing
exactly.
that on, throwing that name on an existing tournament or kind of the placeholder tournament that they have, that
Well,
they
the
set up in
founders is
2020.
sweet, right? But it is only like I think we put a lot more emphasis on it because of what we believe that the founders should be. Because
It
it's a
could
new
be,
event,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, but
Could
it's
be.
also gone.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe Bradenton Country Club is really cool, but it was kind of like, hey, we're going to spots in New Jersey or up in the Northeast that are kind of,
Primo.
venerable old school tracks, like, cool venues that like this thing feels elevated above a rank and file
When
Florida course event, right?
And when you talk about, like, where can the LPGA Tour tell stories to fans and prospective fans, like, I do believe the Founders is one of the best areas they can do that. These 13 women that formed the LPGA Tour, I believe it's the longest running, women's sports organization in the world. There's like that is the history of the LPGA, and I just feel like as the players is kind of the marquee event and celebration on the PGA Tour, it seems to me like the Founders should be that on the LPGA Tour, and yet again they and to add insult to injury, February 6th, it's Super Bowl weekend, so you think they're going to get a strong audience tuning in on Super Bowl Sunday? It's just like, come on, guys, like that's if we want to tell stories and we want to build the brand and we want to celebrate the history, like let's start there. And man, it's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. The
I
other
mean, I'm
thing,
sorry to be negative, but it's just
no,
like that's
The
like it
schedule is
just
the
seems like a
product
lot of missed opportunities.
too, right? And like,
yes,
like I know in the past tournament champions has felt like kind of a sore thumb there or a, extraneous thing there at the front part of the season, and there's really not a tournament till March on the LPGA. So I think this tethers tournament champions to something back to back weeks in Florida at the beginning, and then they go to Thailand, and then Singapore, and then China, and then things kind of start in earnest towards the back half of March. It still feels scattershot, and it still feels like it did 2, 3, 4 years ago as far as just ping ponging back and forth, right?
Yeah.
yeah, the stretch of LA to Houston to Provo, Utah to New York City to Mexico to Wisconsin is going to be interesting.
Yeah, just
It's
trace
like
that
we're
on a
right back
map
to
and
where we
say,
were
We drew a star
years
across
ago.
North
Yeah.
America. Uh,
yeah,
and I think that's that's an issue. And I'll say this, the shitty thing is because these executives, you know, they're bonus based off of playing opportunities and everybody wants playing opportunities. There's too many damn playing opportunities. They need to consolidate some stuff. They need to fix the schedule and get a core of what they want. And then they can start adding things onto it outside of there. And I'll go back to Randy's idea. Like, shit doesn't have to be Thursday through Sunday. You can do a Sunday to Wednesday event. Take advantage of when the PGA Tour or nothing else is on TV. Put venues matter. Sign up some good venues. You're gonna find
Which
people as long
again,
as you're not
easier
taking
said than
weekends out
done.
of them,
Yeah.
for sure. But you gotta try to get creative here. Now, shocking things on the schedule, at least not so much shopping. I guess it stood out to me. So the Ford Championship is back for its second year. It's no longer at Seville Country Club down south of Phoenix. It's at Whirlwind Golf Club now. Of course, the JM Eagle LA Championship that's usually held at Wilshire. They're still going under renovations there. So that's at I'm not even going to say that. Some other golf course in in LA. And then the Portland Classic, the standard Portland Classic and the BMW Ladies Championship are both on the schedule, but we got big old TBDs next to them. But, happy that there's a Portland event still.
Yeah.
yeah,
I think there may be an opportunity here as we move along. Like if as the PGA Tour kind of right sizes their schedule and tells, either shrinks the schedule or the fall series especially. Hey, if there's only 35 PGA Tour events, grab a few of those sponsors that are getting kicked to the curb, or, granted, it's gone the opposite way right now where Cognizant's sponsoring the Palm Beach event, and, I imagine that's where some of that budget went, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's work to be done, and I think we can kind of wrap the commissioner conversation there. Probably is just it's going to be very interesting what decision and that person's vision and what their priorities are because
What
the
would your
underlying
priorities be,
golf.
Biggie? What give me some fun ideas. Because
Well,
people want you to be committed. People want your name in this hat, man.
right,
I mean, we
right.
made it 46 minutes into this thing, but I mean, you should
No,
be on the short list.
I to me, again, to beat on the drum, to me, it starts with a broadcast partner that is willing to invest side by side with you
Mhm.
in your product, and I don't think that's the case. And so whether there's wiggle room in the existing current contract to, like you said, hey, let's try some things, right? I think the LPGA should be an incubator of ideas. The LPGA should not be trying to do an impersonation of the PGA Tour in the
Yep.
way they telecast, in the way they operate, in the way that they necessarily do anything, right? Let's try different broadcast options. Let's mic players up. Let's, like you said, Cody, can we find some days where we don't just run it Thursday to Sunday? Maybe we try to take advantage of some like off days and get in better TV spots. Um,
Which I'll say this, they took
I
they
I don't have all
I
the answers.
I
Yeah,
thought they showed really good flexibility at Pelican by having footage of the pro-am. Like, "Hey, Caitlin Clark is here. We're going to take advantage of this moment. Like, we're gonna get some additional footage and everything else like that." Now you can use it if Golf Channel seemed pretty interested to do that, because they knew that they were gonna get some juicy numbers tied to it. But you gotta have the flexibility with them.
and you gotta like another priority. I know KPMG has made a big thing with the KPMG performance insights, but to really solidify the statistics week to week in LPGA golf. And I think that's such a ripe area where you can begin to tell stories and get to golf fans where it's like, I would love to know Lydia Ko from 120 yards in, how she compares not only to her peers on the LPGA Tour, but it'd be fun to see like the guys hit 120 yard and in wedges. Like, how
Yeah.
does she stack up against the men, right? We should have somewhat even statistics where you can tell the story of like, MB Park when she was playing, like, is she truly the best putter in the world? Because she quite well could have been, but we don't know because we can't measure like we do on the men's side. There's just a lot of different areas, but it all stems to me like if we're just going to continue to increase purses and the schedule scattershot and nobody really knows where the broadcast is and we're on four different streaming things for an hour each, like they have to concentrate on the fan experience if they want to grow this thing. And so that's where I want to see the new commissioner really make a mark and really speak to us about what the priorities will be.
I think there's two really, like, low-hanging fruit things that I've got is, let's say with KPMG, for instance, they got 10 over $10 million in that purse. What if that purse is $8 million and you spend a million or 2 on the broadcast and make it, and then advertise around the broadcast, say, "Hey, here's a different look at golf," or "Here's a different experience," and all that. I think that is a much better investment in your players over the long term than just writing them, like, they're still gonna get a big ass check, and, but it's, "Hey, like, let's grow this thing sustainably, and so we're not redlining the engine," and trying to do that when the product or the fan engagement doesn't necessarily support it because the TV broadcast isn't there yet. I would say something else too is just set the courses up better. I think
Yeah.
it's I think that's really part of the problem over the last decade has been there's too much parity, right? Why is there too much parity? Because you're de-skilling some of these setups because they're all hitting a bunch of wedges in and they're
Yeah.
wide, they're too short, and you're not like the best players aren't able to maximize what makes them the best players. And, that to me is like Nelly, it shouldn't have taken Nelly this long to differentiate herself from the other players. Same thing with Lydia or others. It's like really, if anything, I think that makes Lydia's career look even more impressive.
It does.
Because it's much more of a flattened playing field where, hey, if it's a little bit longer or narrower or firmer greens or faster surfaces, I think you have a look at a lot more dominance, which is a good thing. Like that sells, right? Familiarity and that's directly tied into course setup. And there's so many times when everybody just thinks everybody wants to see birdies. It's like, no, like if everybody's making a birdie, it doesn't mean anything. And I thought some of the best, like the best tournaments to watch all year were the one out in Palos Verdes was awesome because it was windy, funky drives, and like there was like real risk off the tee, especially. It's just one of those things where it's like all outcomes need to be in play, right? It's not like hit it to 30 feet or hit it to 10 feet, and both are kind of good shots, or you can't tell the difference between a good shot and a bad shot, or even worse, can't tell the difference between a good shot and a great shot. And that to me ties into, some of it is venue related of like, hey, you got to get better venues, but also you got to set some of these venues up better, bottom line. And I think the best players will support you on that as well.
Be the tour, something that just came to mind. Be the tour that combats slow play,
Yes.
right? Like
Guys.
make that part of your brand. I God, there's just so many things that I think the majority of players would be into too, that like start differentiating from the other professional golf organizations.
Your ITC on setup though, just thinking about it real quick, like I think that's why you mentioned Palos Verdes, but like that's why we love Wilshire so much. Is
Yeah.
because it's different. It makes them hit more creative shots, and we usually don't get to see them playing surfaces like that and surrounds like that where they have to like show their true artistry. That's why we loved Upper Montclair. That's
Yeah.
a completely different look for a different reason, but like that's why. And if you look at the
Shadow Creek,
leaderboards,
same thing of like, there's
if
a
you
Yeah.
look at the
differentiation.
leaderboards,
Yeah.
that's where you're bringing, like, of course, you have the Nellies that are up there, but that's why, like, I mean, Hannah Green is so good. She wins at all these different golf courses, but she's a grinder.
Yeah.
Rose proved herself this year at the Founders Cup. Like, I mean, I honestly can't believe her and Madeline played so damn good. It's a kind of criminal that happened at the same week for both of them. But like having those experiences, because you don't get to see them be able to hit, and like the true dogs get out there and like and play because of everything is set up the exact same.
And I feel like we got a good look at it a few times too with the old course.
Yes.
Was it was the conditions were like it that provided a great leaderboard. We even got it at Chevron, and I thought Lancaster was awesome for the US Open, and they set it up to challenge the
Awesome.
players and all of that, and the action delivers. Like the worst thing you can do is just like same thing with like I'll be fascinated to see how they set up Aaron Hills for the women, because if it blows, it's gonna be like hard. But
Very, very hard.
I'm worried they're gonna set it up too short, and it's not gonna challenge best players, or there's so many of those spots where it could actually throttle the longest best players back because they're, hitting it into other bunkers on the other side of the dog legs.
Well, we know one thing for sure is that the RNA, they're not going to give a crap at Porthcawl. And the last time we saw that, the old guys almost got blown off the earth.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
it'll be very interesting to see as that date has moved again, because we don't have the Olympics on the calendar. But guys, we started this year. I think we had the preview podcast on January 17th. I mentioned the 24 questions and 24, the big debuted then. One of them, he asked them, was a two-parter. Who will win the season-long race for the CME points list? And then who will win the CME Tour Championship? Randy, Phil, Landis. He said Nelly will win the CME list, but Gino, Taya at the time, we can't. She
That's
changed her
true. I
name.
didn't
We
I
didn't do
didn't
it.
get that prediction.
Gino wins the CME. Absolutely nails right there, buddy. But I think, those two stand out this year, but we don't need to go through all of this. I'm sorry for Minji's year, TC. I'm sorry for
Yeah,
Lynn's year. I called it the year of Nelly Corda to start out, and people doubted me,
You
but
you did. Let me jump in here and give you your flowers, Cody. I listened back to that preview episode as well, and you were adamant. You said Nelly, she's been grinding in the off season. This was last year. She's gonna fix the putting woes. Like you very solidly said, this is the year of Nelly, and that was, I mean, that's as good of a call as it gets.
need to hang the burgundy pants in the Hall of Fame when she gets there. But really, CME Tour Championship, Gino, she got $4 million for winning it, guys. That also you can add an extra million that she got because the week prior she was awarded the Aon Risk Reward because she didn't play Pelican. She was protecting the lead. But hey, I guess that's why not when you're playing for a million bucks. And it's crazy to look at her season. So theoretically, like she should have won more awards. She just doesn't have enough events because she started the season out very much hurt. In total, I think she had 17 starts that included 15 cuts made, a bunch of top tens, and then the wins at CME and the Dow with Ronnie. She finished the season fourth on the CME Globe list. Hell of a year for somebody who didn't even tee it up until Chevron.
Yeah, she was. I mean, she was injured to start the year, like you said, and I think the big shame with Gino is early in the year. You know, she, like her only missed cuts, I think, were at a few of the majors early, and so she was just kind of somebody that wasn't really in the top of mind. But man, since AIG Women's Open, she's top 10 the last 7 events. Capped it with the win at the CMA. She is a top 10 machine. Like I don't have this in front of me, but really since she's gotten on the LPGA Tour, I would be shocked if anybody has more top 10s over that span than Gino. And we've just been waiting to for that ratio of top 10s to wins, right? To kind of shrink a little bit and for her to capture more wins. I hope that's coming. I really think it is coming. I think she could be somebody that could win 4, 5, 6 times next year. We don't have to get into predictions, but man, it just seems like she's going to have a monster year one of these years coming up, and I think she has ended 2024 just absolutely prime to do so.
I think I said our question H, two women, Ronnie Yin or Ataya Titakum will spend the majority of 2024 21 years old. Who finishes higher in the LPGA Player of the Year race in 2024? All of you said Gino. I said, I don't trust Gino.
Which, from a win perspective, I think is, I won't.
I think
She
there's
just
a ton of similarities with Gino and Xander.
Yes.
I think that's right.
And both of them have proven in
I
the
trust
last year
both of
that
them now. Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure, that like when the big moment is there, they have not only the game, but they got kind of that burning desire in them now to go get it. And I completely agree with what you said to start the year because from what we learned the year prior, that was Ronnie. Like and Ronnie didn't have a bad year. She was
She had a
kind of
great
banged.
year.
She was banged up, and like obviously she expected to win more, but she won it. She won them a lot. She had a really good year.
She won 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was fantastic. She finishes the year second in the Rolex rankings, the world rankings.
Nelly Corda, Rolex Player of the Year. It's the second consecutive American to earn the Rolex Player of the Year. Of course, Lilia Vu, who we'll talk about later, won the year prior. That hasn't happened for a long, long time, going back to the early 90s. She had 7 wins this year, of course, including the Chevron, the one major, 9 top 10s, and 3.6 million in earnings. That's a lot of wins compared to Gino's wins. Gino had more top 10s, and obviously CME's got that massive purse. But it kind of goes back to that argument of, we're going to talk about Lydia in a second, but like for the amount that Nelly won, she didn't win that much money.
No. And while the Chevron is a major and will forever be a major on her resume, like we said a few episodes ago, it's like Lydia kind of won the one that Nelly really wanted. I mean, Nelly herself said if she could have one mulligan, it would be that drive on 16 where she pumped it out of bounds in round 4. So, yeah, Nelly, awesome season, but it's like, yeah, you didn't kind of win any of like the real crown jewels, which is an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, T2 at the AIG Women's Open, like you said, miscut at US Women's Open and the KPMG, and then really T26 at the Evian. All of that, she still won the major award. I think that's kind of the separator, her performance in majors and the amount of wins when you stack up somebody like Lydia. And I know the last podcast we talked about this, whose season would you rather want? Like Nelly won an awful lot, but I do think like closing the hat trick on Olympic medals for Lydia and then the AIG Women's Open for the, at St. Andrews, man, I've turned myself around on whose season that I wanted because now I think it's Lydia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mao Saigo ended up rookie of the year. Incredible. Second Japanese player to ever win it. She played so many events, guys. 29 starts, 7 top 10s, only 5 missed cuts and 29 starts. That's so much time on the road. Like on the first time basically you've ever been in America or anywhere else. Like she just absolutely beat it up. She was runner up at the Canadian as well as the LPGA event in Shanghai. Overall, finished 9th on the CME list. She is the highest player on the CME list that did not have a win this year. But yeah, just phenomenal stuff.
do you think so? Mao Saigo, she comes over 23-year-old rookie this year, but tons of experience on the JLPGA. We've
You're gonna ask,
seen
should she be eligible to win the Rookie of
Should
the
she be a
Year?
rookie?
so that's I wasn't gonna ask that one, but it's in the ballpark because I'm thinking of somebody like Gabby Ruffles, who had a very good year, and we were all very high on her. It seems like, man, I just wonder if some of these Americans might have a thought, especially with like Asian heritage. Are they better suited like to go over to Japan or Korea? I don't know the mechanisms to join the JLPGA or the KLPGA, but it seems like the players that are graduating from those tours and coming to the LPGA, it's not necessarily that they're like winning all the time, but they're just making a ton of money and making a ton of cuts, and it seems like those are great feeder systems. Whereas the Epson Tour, the results are much more mixed,
Yeah.
perhaps.
God, that's a provocative question,
I don't
Big.
know.
I
I mean, I
don't
feel
know.
like
You
there's
want
a
to talk
big
about
language barrier.
for sure culture
Right.
barrier.
Yeah.
I mean, and I understand just because they might be like
Expenses too.
US born, like I think there's a lot of things that would tie there. But I like the way you're thinking. It's provocative because not only talking about Mao Saigo, but like, yesterday Q series just wrapped and TC's Yamashita just won, she was a
Yeah.
medalist there. But she's gonna be a rookie next year on the LPGA tour. She's like top 15 in the world. Okay. She's won like every LPGA event you can possibly think of, but will still be a rookie and will probably take the LPGA tour by storm.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd love to see somebody try it. Kind of like, Brooks Koepka went over to
Brooks and
Europe instead of,
PDU line. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, even if you look at it now, there's still guys, a John Catlin who like was leading the Asian International Series or whatever, and bounces between Asian Tour
Yeah.
and Live. Like he was playing Asian Tour before any PIF investment or anything else, just because that's the only place that he could play at. Um, but I also think when you look at it, and again, I think we should do a deep dive on the Rolex rankings and like what that actually ties you into, because it blows my mind that again, Yamashita, like
That like her
why
world ranking wouldn't just get
like
her into.
why
Yeah.
how is she not have
Yeah.
conditional status
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
or
right.
something or starts? Like it doesn't make any sense. Just
Close
like
shop,
the
Cody.
announcement a couple weeks ago of like, oh yeah, we have these college pathways, but really in the history of the LPGA Tour, only 3 people would have ever qualified for that. So it's not a pathway. Like
No.
it, and I understand that it takes certain people longer, but like I just think back to like, did Is it best for Ingrid to spend this summer driving around Kansas, Iowa, and wherever else, or like playing on the LPGA tour? You know? And I
Or
guess on the
ladies
flips
European, right?
or yeah, for sure. And on the flip side of that, I guess you could use the example of like a Maria Fossey. He came out, got status right away on her own right. You know, she played well at qualifying school. That's how she got straight to the LPGA tour. But, you know, it's taken her a long time to kind of come into her own form. So I don't know. You're right, Big. I don't know how it worked because it seems like even on the LPGA tour side, they're like, oh yeah, I forgot that we have that, you know, developmental tour. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy, you know?
Well, and I think it's a little interesting too when you consider the brand building potential. It would have to be a very unique situation, right? I think it might work with somebody again with some type of Asian heritage where they could go play in Japan or Korea. But man, think about an American going over there for a year or two, presumably winning a bunch, doing really well. Like you could build a fan base over there,
Yeah.
and then you come back stateside, and I don't know. It
Huh.
at least interests me.
Like, I feel like I need to do a deep dive on just, KLPGA or the
Yeah,
JLPGA and kinda how what
we
those
should get
courses are
super
set
deep
up
into
like and
this
what the
next year.
venues are like and all of that
Yeah,
too, you know?
yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, even then, the people that come out on top of their points list and they come over
Yeah.
either with LET or LPGA, like they're performers.
We're ta
You know?
we're gonna talk
We're
about one of
literally
them
been
next.
and we have been talking
Yeah.
about them so far. So, VAR trophy, that's of course lowest scoring average for the year with one caveat. They must meet the minimum round count, okay? Ayaka Foodway wins that because both Gino and Nelly, they had lower scoring averages, but they just didn't have enough rounds, guys.
How many were they short by?
I
Net
think
yeah,
Nelly was
I'd have to look it
2 or
up.
3 short and
Uh,
Gino was 2.
2 or 3 rounds
Oh, no, no,
or
events,
tournaments? Okay,
events. So
gotcha.
probably, you know, whatever, 6, probably 6 rounds, 8 rounds.
Huh.
Um, that's the highest scoring average that has won it since Danielle King won in 2020 was 70.082. First player from Japan to win the award. And you know,
That's
she's
so
just
good.
really, really consistent. She had 24 starts, 12 top tens, including the Evian Championship. Only one miscut, and that was at Dow, so she can blame it on her partner.
I'm not sure how many actual rounds Nelly fell short, but if it's 7 or less, I feel like you should be able to if you can add your wins to your rounds and meet the threshold, I think you should qualify. Like, I think it's kinda silly that Nelly wins 7 times as player of the year, and it's like, "Yeah, sorry, you were, maybe 5, 6 rounds short of qualifying for the scoring title."
She also was hurt at towards the end of the year, man. She was out, you know, that hunting injury. She was out
That's true.
shooting her guns in Wisconsin, blew her
That's
shoulder out.
true.
That's a hearsay. That's not true. I'm just strictly making that up. Okay. Heather Farr Perseverance Award. Lydia Ko. What a year for the Hall of Famer. She did what she needed to do. But I will say this: I thought Lydia Ko started this year gangbusters. She won Hilton. She theoretically should have won the drive on that Nelly ended up coming and beating her out in that playoff. Of course, wins gold at the Olympics, wins Women's Open at St. Andrews, then followed it up immediately with Cincinnati. Also went on a couples trip to Bandon Dune. It's truly the summer of Lydia. I don't know, guys. I think obviously very well deserving award, but anything else that we're kind of missing from Lydia's year?
Think so? I mean, I think, you hit the high points, like, I think I'll remember probably St. Andrews the most with the Olympics being 2nd place beyond that, and then I feel like otherwise Hilton and Cincinnati and some of the others, it goes back to, like, you're seeing glimpses here or there or some tape delayed stuff or they're just fighting for they're just fighting for eyeballs, right?
Yeah, I mean, in there was the Hall of Fame qualification, so I know we had mentioned that before. I think the biggest thing with Lydia goes beyond like the actual wins and what the wins and the Olympics and the Hall of Fame. I think it was really cool. You just you heard people talking about Lydia and you learned about Lydia, and I just think it's really wonderful to just learn more about her and really how revered she is to a player out on the LPGA tour. I think that's the thing I'll take most is like
True class.
not only has she had all this on course success, but she's beloved, and
Yeah.
that's really cool.
The only thing that I would add too is that I think people quickly forgot kind of how bad 22 and 23 were. Like this was she was in the doldrums, man. Like
Yeah.
her game, she was searching for it. At one point in time, she thought, about just hanging it up because this weight of these Hall of Fame points is kind of hanging over her. There were swing instructor changes. It's a lot going on. And man, she's a killer. I'll never forget that hybrid on 17 at the old
It's the
course.
best in the rain.
Obviously,
Yeah.
I had you know, being out there and experiencing those conditions with them as they're doing it is just like it's phenomenal stuff, like all world. And she's such a great person, incredible ambassador, not just for the game, but for everything that comes around with Lydia Ko. All right, guys, a lot of moments this year. I wanted you to call out everybody's favorite moment of the 2024 LPGA Tour year. TC, what do you got?
It's tough not to like Lauren winning for me was that was it. And
Which
then
time?
right. Well, I think Canada
Yeah.
specifically, and then because I think the way that she did it in Scotland was like you're expecting her to do it. I think Canada just with even kind of being down and out a little bit on the front nine and making some putts that in the past haven't gone in prior, and just kind of seeing that self confidence and belief in herself like manifest into what, I am good enough, like in all those spots that kind of built up, whether it was at Chevron of making that putt on 18 at Chevron, like small wins from previous preceding moments, then kind of coalescing to finally add up to a win was freaking awesome. So, and
Yeah, I
like
agree.
probably not my favorite, like probably not just my favorite moment of the year, probably like my favorite moment of like, or like one of my favorite moments since we started laying up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Incredible. And you're spot on calling out that putt on the 18th at Chevron. I think not just the wins, of course, Solheim Cup in there, but really I think she learned a ton at the Evian and learning from those Chevron kind of, faulty, when things weren't going right at the final round at the Chevron, like I felt her and John like had a really good plan. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, oh man, like the this final round is not going how LC and John want it to go, but she's learning so much from this and just like hoovering up all that information and then immediately coming out with Canada, a couple weeks later and like just getting it done. And I was like, hell yes. It's such a cool moment, man. What a year. And TC, you called it, when we were talking about like, oh yeah, who are people that, might be as outsiders for Solheim Cup and big years and stuff. You were steadfast and like, nope, this is LC. LC's gonna do it this year.
So
Oh
my
yeah.
moment we've talked about my moment. I wrote down a few. We've talked about most of them, like everything from Nelly snatching Lydia's soul in February at the drive on to Rose and Madeline dueling at the Founders. Linnea Strom, I want to shot a final round 60 to win the shop right by one shot. What else did I have on there that we're probably not going to get to? Lilia Vu's wedge into 18 to tie her match and win the U.S. the Solheim Cup was a really big deal. But for me, it just comes back to St. Andrews and the Women's Open. I mean, I believe down the stretch you had 5 world number ones at various points, like all I think there were 4 tied for the lead at one point on the back nine at St. Andrews. And I believe if Aria world number one at some point, but maybe the top 6 in the final leaderboard at St. Andrews have all been ranked number one in the world at a certain point. From Nellie's drive on 16 to Lydia's medal into 17 and then going and birdieing 18. Like that whole final day and specifically that final 9 was just like the moment of the year for me, Cody.
Yeah, I agree. That's my moment of the year as well. It helps that we were there and saw and experienced it. I just I was with Lilia, and I thought that she was gonna make it happen on 18. I thought she was gonna, put her foot down on 17 too, and that really just wasn't the case. But uh what an incredible opportunity. I remember standing like just off of the tee box on 18, watching Lydia finish up and make that birdie putt and being like, "Oh my goodness, like, now there's actual pressure on this." And going up there and like one of the sneaky things that people forget is that Lilia hit driver on 18 and it hit that little crossing path. Whatever that little I can't remember the name of that little road or street or
It's
whatever it is.
Granny's Wind or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she flew it in there, and that thing catapulted, like, higher than the RNA building and went all the way up there and left her that super awkward distance where a chip where she couldn't or a pitch, excuse me, where she couldn't get enough spin on it and still had an opportunity to make that putt. It just didn't go down, but incredible experience. I can't wait for the next one. I'm
I
like,
know.
"Let's do it. Let's
I
announce
I
something. Let's come on."
I totally forgot about that playoff in the drive on and just
Mhm.
that whole because like Cody, we were watching that on the on the drive from LAX up to
Yeah.
Monterey, like on the way
I
from
was, like, giving
Australia to
you
Pebble.
play
Yeah.
by play as you were driving,
Okay.
and I was like, "Dude, you won't believe this." Lydia had it in the bag, and,
She
like,
was she
ah
was Nelly was 3 shots down
yeah,
standing
Yeah.
on 17 T, and
yeah,
then
and, like,
she
out
hit a
of
birdie.
nowhere, it was like she chipped in on 16, birdied 17, birdied 18, and then I've never really seen, like, just, 2 world-class players, but they play such different games. They played that 18th hole in the playoff, like, 3 or 4 times and just like, "Oh, Nelly's just bombing drives up there." And Lydia's just placing it strategically on the correct angle of the fairway and, like, just the
Yeah.
difference in it. And the ultimate jinx by the LPGA Tour staff, by the way. You guys remember
That's right, they had the Hall of Fame, like, they were
they
ready to
had
go.
roses, they had
Yeah.
champagne, they had everything out there, and at one point in time, I can't remember, somebody's ball, like, almost landed in the bouquet of roses. Bad jinx.
Yeah. Nelly's 10, that was the only other one,
That was
sh her
sick.
making 10 on the par 3 12th, which was her 3rd hole, round 1 US Open, trying to win, I believe, her 6th straight start, like, that was
That was a
shocking.
true heat check
Yeah,
moment, and then she almost made the cut after
that's
that, like, she
right.
kinda battled
She
back.
battled.
US Open was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah,
That
I
Yuka,
You could hit some
yeah.
really freaking good iron shots down the stretch on Sunday there.
she says that the shot that she wished she could have back, I understand is that her tee shot on 16 final round at the Women's Open, but really big, you're right that the third hole, like everything, all of the momentum for that tournament was with Nelly, and honestly,
Yeah.
it was like after when that happened. I mean, it was a cool U.S. Women's Open, but like it was very deflated. Um,
I was gonna say that was the to me, that was like the peak of Nelly, like the anticipation, the buildup, like the outside of just golf, the media attention. Like it was all eyes on Nelly, and for her to go out and make it 10, it was you're right, Cody. It was like, damn, like that sucks.
And a overall tough stretch for there. So she missed that cut, like we said at the U.S. Women's Open, missed cut at the Meyer, missed cut at the next major, the KPMG, and then her next event, she took a long break, was at Evian. She finished T26 there before the Olympics. So it was kind of a peaks and valleys, but it got pretty dark there for Nelly for quite a bit. TC, what's your most brutal moment of this year? We talked about that 10 by Nelly, but anything else you got?
I'll go to I think Ryan Ryan O'Toole playing the playoff against Nelly and, like,
Mhm.
played probably the best golf of her career and went toe to toe on a really difficult funky golf course, and and lost to her kind of at the, like you said, the height of Nellie's powers too. So I just remember watching that and being like, man, that was a tough loss for anybody to stomach there.
That's a good one.
But again, there's just like these spots where it's like there's stuff that, like, that's set up, right? That's like the venue, and like you got to hit weird, uncomfortable shots, and I don't know. That was one of the most impressive things about Nellie's streak to me was she was doing it on so many different types of golf courses and setups where like there was that variety out there. I would say just like like a purely not even golf related standpoint, like the most brutal moment of the year was the like the morning of the LPGA, like the Solheim Cup and the
Yeah,
transportation snafu.
that's
That's
not
right.
good.
Yeah. I think
Where
that's
like there's
absolutely right.
empty
Yeah.
stands on the first tee when they've built
Yeah.
out this entire experience around the first tee. And and like don't get me started on like choosing the wrong venues for the Solheim Cup too that aren't compact and
Yeah.
energetic and all of that. They're like disparate and spread out and stuff. But man, like that was one of the biggest own goals I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, it was such a shitty morning. Remember walking out there and be like, "Wait a second, where's everybody at? Like, this is
Yeah, it
weird.
was kinda surreal, like, huh?
Like, our date's wrong." And it's not like that was like
Is
the
this a little
first herd.
practice
People have
round?
been calling that out for weeks. That venue has a history. That parking lot, the transfers, like they have a history of that going
Jiffy
back to
Lube Live.
yeah, all the President's Cups and PGA Tour events and everything. Everybody called that out.
Yeah.
My most brutal moment of the year, not because of that, but like this player shot 22 under in an LPGA Tour event with rounds 65, 66, 66, and 69, and got beat by somebody who shot 24 under. The third place person was only at 9 under par. And that's, of course, Rose and Madeline at the Founders. And those two, like, lifted and separated themselves. And I thought, like, I've never seen Madeline hit the ball that well. I've never seen her make so many clutch putts. And like the sheer determination by Rose of like, wait, this is the player that we all know Rose to be. And I
Yeah.
was like, I thought it was a big turning point, not only in her year, but really like where she's at in her career.
I agree. It was incredible how easy they were making that golf look, and really, the telecast was just showing them. So you're like, God, is this an easy setup? It's like, no, it's not an easy golf course setup. Like, there's nobody else double digits under par. So that's a good shout out, Cody. The only one I wanted to toss in from like a brutal perspective, it's more of like a lifetime honor, was just Lexi Thompson in her final Solheim Cup match being 3 up on the back nine and losing 1 up to Celine. That was kind of like, yeah, that's indicative of a
It's a
lot
representative sample.
of things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. And then freaking out because she finished on the ninth hole in her final event. It's not really her final event, but
Yeah.
turning to Instagram to be like,
Where's my
what the fuck,
flowers?
you know?
She got flowers all freaking year,
I
man.
know.
Yeah.
And who knows how many events she's going to play, but she still will play probably more events than anybody else kind of thinks. Guys, the one thing we started the year 2024 as Lilia Vu being the number one player in the world. The question was, will she finish 2024 season ranked number one? Jordan Perez, our own Jordan Perez, said only player that can knock Lilia off of her number one spot is Charlie Hall. That didn't end up be. I said, uh,
Sorry, Jordan.
I said she is great. She had a phenomenal year, but Nelly is coming. TC Lilia will not be number one, and it will not be Nelly firing right back at me. It will be Minji, career year, at least 3 wins to include the major. TC, what do you have of Minji's year?
It was disappointing. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I don't think I was wrong. I think I was just early. All right.
Okay.
The best block to be on. That's
I
how
mean,
I feel
she
about
she
Gino too. I was
she
calling for
made
Gino to
16
essentially have the
putts.
year that Nelly did. Yeah.
She only had 4 top 10s. Um, And it just wasn't like, it wasn't bad necessarily. It just wasn't good either. So more to come. I need to dig into the data a little bit more.
All right, Randy, of course, says he would love it if Lilia does remain number one, but he thinks that Gino is going to do it. You're pretty
Not bad.
close. Gino got all the way up to number 4 in the world. As it sits right now, Nelly, then Ronnie Yin is number 2, Lydia Ko, number 3, Gino 4, and Lilia Vu is in that 5th spot.
The game's in a great spot, and I think that's what makes me more frustrated when, that first conversation about just the commissionership and how the game can push forward is like we have the talent. We have, these young women, international flair that are playing exceptional golf. Like this is the time to invest, and I think there'll be a lot of golf fans that really want to get interested in this if we can just make some improvements. But I'm so happy with where the on course state of women's golf lies right now, Cody. Like I'm and granted, my fandom, I'll very much admit, I'm more of a Johnny come lately. But in my time following women's golf, like there's not a better top 5 to end the year. I mean, this is as good
Yeah.
as it gets.
And there's more
Yeah.
depth than ever too.
Yeah,
I feel like, maybe 5 or 6 years ago when we talk about this, there's a bunch of players on, 50 to 75 that you're not really as familiar with. And now it's a lot more competitive up there.
Yeah, I agree. And with players like really just not, I don't want to say not having a good year, but it's also hard when like, you know, Nelly wins everything and then you have other, multiple wins by other players, but like tough year, really like a very unnormal year for Brooke Henderson. And I know like,
Mm.
she got new glasses, but that didn't seem to help very much
I mean,
anything.
actually, Randy would call it a normal year for her.
True. Allison Corpuz, maybe everybody was just riding a little bit high coming off a
Yeah.
pebble. I don't know. It's just one of those things. TC, the other people that we were very, very high on was
Maya
our
and Lynn.
Swedes.
Yeah.
And I would say not the year that we thought from both of them. I thought they played pretty good at the Solheim Cup. But really I think a big growing year for Maya, like putting herself in awesome position, like, not only at Chevron, but then at Wilshire too, like probably if Hads wouldn't have went away for whatever, a bachelor party or whatever the hell he was,
Come on,
and
Hat.
stayed on the bag, she probably would have won there. No offense to Jack, of course, but that's just kind of how it turned out. And then, just uncharacteristic from both of them. And I know they're working on swing stuff. It's just weird. Like, I don't think we don't want to do that. Just like play good golf again.
Yeah, Lynn's I'm getting whiffs of thrower, not pitcher
Oof.
from Lynn. Monitoring that. I want to see the right shots at the right times. All right.
I will say Lynn, it looks like, well, who knows? But she's played some good golf the last
Yeah,
couple of months.
she
I
has.
think 2025 is going to be both important and fascinating for Lynn.
The other thing that we talked about was like that the all important overall Rolex top 10. Who's gonna move in? Who's gonna move out? Randy said Celine, and she's out. Rose is coming in. Rose is in. Celine is barely hanging on. I think she's currently in the 8th spot. But overall, like not a horrible year for Celine. No real like high points, but no real like down spots either. Just kind of ho hum. And then the very traditional that we have now appearance and performance at the Solheim Cup of like what the hell is this? Like she's one of the few players that I've ever seen that like their week in week out game just does not show up at all in these team events. It's very very weird.
I can't figure her out. I don't know if it's a French thing. I have no idea. I have no idea. The one person in the top 10, Cody, Heyron Rue, we've spent some time the last couple months just highlighting what a top 10 machine she was. She did win this year, but she's somebody that like I, I don't know. Like, could she be the new? I don't want to say the new Jin Young Ko. That's not fair to either of them. But I just feel like Heyron Rue is somebody that appears to be another of these like top 10 machines, like very, very high floor.
Yeah, I completely agree there. Phenomenal year. Happy to see her get that win. But yeah, the top 10, I think again, we say the top 5 there, but really, I mean, the women's game is in such an awesome spot, and I hate doing it. The other question that we had was on the 3 kind of young Americans that we had, Rose, Angel, and Megan Kang. Who is going to have kind of the best year? I was in on Rose, TC, Angel, Jordan, Angel. Randy, I don't think you ever really answered that. I will
Very
say this is
political answer. Yeah.
that Rose obviously, got another win and played a pretty good year. But for Angel, like being
Yeah,
injured and not getting a lot of reps, like she turned it on, man. She
for sure.
showed up right out of the gate at match play and then finished the year awesome.
Yeah, Angel has dog mentality, I think, and I don't, I'm impressed there. Cody, you skipped over the Lexi enters 2024 ranked number 32 in the Rolex rankings.
What's that?
Well, there was a
Strategic.
question. Lexi
Yeah.
enters
I've
2024
skipped
ranked number
so many of
32
these.
in the Rolex rankings. Will she finish 2024 ranked higher or lower? Jordan said
Ooh.
higher. Cody said higher, and I said she's joining the cliques.
Yes.
Like, she hasn't done
It's
that yet, but that's still on the table, I think.
yeah. Not a good year. Probably rightful decision for her to realize and hang it up full time. We'll see. Guys, any other call outs for the year? I think, we're all very in on Team USA at the Solheim Cup. I'm kind of shocked it got as close as it did, but pretty cool. We were off. We were all very, very high on Gabby for rookie of the year. But anything else that kind of stood out to you guys?
She did most of her damage earlier in the year, but it was great to see Patty Tavatanakit play some
Mm,
good golf. She won the Saudi, and she won. Oh God, what event did she win on the LPGA Tour? But in Thailand, and still inconsistent, not quite. I don't think at the height of her powers, but at least trending in a better direction than we had seen the last couple of years, which is good.
Cody, one other call out I had was said 2024 LPGA Player of the Year will be. You said Nelly. Randy said Gino. Both great picks. I said Minji. Not a great pick. Jordan said Allison Lee, which
hmm
is fascinating.
Jordan took some swings. I respect that,
Yeah.
Jordan.
But I mean, she was in on Allison Lee
Yeah.
and really had her best year ever on the LPGA
Yeah.
Tour. I mean,
Made the
ended up
Solheim Cup.
Solheim Cup, playing pretty
Yeah.
good at the Solheim Cup. I like Solheim Cup. Nobody really talked too much about it at the time, but like how open and honest Allison was is like, hey, I'm like the not the young girl anymore. Everybody thinks that I am, and I'm kind of like in a different like phase. Like I theoretically should be a rookie, even though I hadn't played on one of these teams in like 8 years. But really was awesome. Like totally embrace the situation. It was kind of a cool moment. All right, guys, let's look ahead. I wanted to give each of you the opportunity to talk about a couple players. Let's figure out what are we going to do? A little buying, holding, selling. Let's start with who are we holding on to first? Big.
I'm holding Nelly. I obviously there's really, I don't think, a ton of room to go up. She's got a huge lead as world number one. I wouldn't be shocked if she holds on to that through 2025. I expect her to win a boatload of tournaments. I'm holding Nelly.
We need more real majors, Randy.
Yeah. Yeah, a US Women's Open or a AIG Women's Open preferably.
Yeah, or KPMG, just anything outside of Chevron and Evian, like it is. But I'm right there. I'm also holding Nelly TC.
I'm holding Minji. I think I think there's great golf in there. I think, maybe she was a little burned out coming into, like, she talked about how she was kind of burned out at the end of 2023, and maybe that kind of carried over or whatever, but I think she's really freaking good, and I think the ball striking is just absolutely elite, and that's going to rise to the top.
Are you more in on Minji or Lin?
I'm more in on Minji.
Okay, I think that says a ton. All right, who do you guys want to buy?
I had 4, Cody, and they're all they're different tiers of the
Yeah.
world of the Rolex ranking. So you tell me, we don't have to go through all 4, but you tell me what tier you would like.
Well, let's start at the top. Let's see what you got.
Gino, I feel like I've said
Yes.
it. I just think she's primed to have a monster season. Her ball striking, just to add some stats to this. So Nelly led total shots gained 2.44 per round. Gino was 2.4 per round, and then nobody else is above 2 on the LPGA Tour. I mean, I think Gino's top gear is like best in the world, and I think we're going to see a big season.
TC.
I'm gonna go back to the well on Gabby. I've got 3 or 4 as well, but I'm gonna go back to the well on Gabby. I think wasn't wrong, just early.
No, I completely agree. And really like awesome year. I'm the same way. You know, I think I've mentioned her a couple times, kind of jokingly, but also I'm like super in on Alexa Pano. I think as she
Ah,
continues to
that was my 4th, Cody. Let me just get that in. Yeah.
okay, as she continues to grow and we always hear these things of there might be a potential caddy switch coming, but even if that doesn't come, like it seems like the relationship that she has with her father, like there's nobody else really that she would like to travel the world with and have in those moments with her. And they've proven that it's been successful so far. I just think that maybe a caddy change and separating a little bit of that could bring her to the next level. But I'm so in on it. I think we always forget how young that she actually is and kind of the experience that she's already had under her belt to include a win on the LET. Very much in there buying.
So a couple quick numbers. Alexa Pano ranked 8th in 2024 in shots gained tee to green, 2nd in driving, 5th around the greens. And so you're like, how is she? She's world number 110. Abhorrent putting, negative 1.26 shots gained putting per round. If she can just get mediocre with the putter, I think you'll see her jump in the world ranking. She hits the ball very, very well.
All right, let's talk about who's some dead weight we want to get rid of, guys.
Well,
Who
I
we
got I
cutting
got
away from this?
I got 2 more I'm buying.
Oh,
I'm
go ahead,
continuing
TC.
to buy up Ayaka Furue. I think she's gonna win. I think she's gonna win a major. She's so consistent. I think she's still only like 24. Then I'm buying Andrea Lee. I think she's the heir apparent to like the Celine, kind of doesn't hit it very far, pretty precise, good putter kind of crown. So I think Andrea Lee's best golf is ahead of her. And then yeah, and then I don't know. We could go way down the board, but I don't think we need to. There, I think those are some good
The only
ranks.
other one I wanted to shout out, Cody, and we've mentioned her, Yalimi No,
Mhm.
found something this year.
I
She
just don't know
she
what the
was in the
ceiling is there.
wilderness.
You
The ball
know,
striking's really she's a lot like Alexa Pano. The ball striking stats point to like top 15 type player, and the putting is like, is she, should you be putting left-handed? So I think again, she's another one where like, man, if she can just find a way to roll the ball, she's gonna have some really good results on the ball striking.
what do we do with Ingrid Lindblad?
Buy her up if you want.
I know. I think I'm wait and see on her.
Yeah, hold.
Yeah, agree. I also want to go out there and say like TC, I need a little bit of some share opportunities here on Yamashita. I think
Oh,
you
yeah.
rightfully called it out pretty early. She's gonna have a massive year. Already has a phenomenal career, but really, I think the other one. A lot of people talk about Ingrid. Julia Lopez Ramirez also turned professional and got her card through Q Series. She played in Mississippi State, has been at ANWA and, almost every other major championship she's played in. Incredible player, Spaniard. I like, it's one of those things
We
where
need
like
more young Spaniards
we
coming up.
need that. Yes. And
Yes.
like I talk myself there's a lot about Carlota and her golf that like I really, really like, but it's just the pace of play is so bad that I just cannot bring myself to do it. And I'm hoping that Julia is that for me. So we'll see.
That's yeah, Carlota, I'm like, man, I love her game. She's like
Yeah.
really freaking good.
Yes.
It's just she's like on the terrorist watch list for the
Yes.
pace of play, you know.
So bad.
Question for you guys too. This kind of goes along with buying. Does Lottie Wode win a professional event in 2025? She gonna be a sophomore at FSU? Junior?
Should be a junior, right?
Great question. I'll say
Uh,
no. I mean, the safe pick is no, so I guess I'll play it safe.
she's a junior. She's a junior right now. And rightfully so. When we talked about predictions again, TC called her out as winning the Onwa, which at the time I was like, what? Lottie Wood? No, that can't be the case. We were still very much in. Ingrid wasn't even like our top LSU pick. A lot of Latana Stone love of all things, but
I think we'll
um,
hear from Latana again.
yeah, seems to be out there absolutely, grinding, trying to make it happen. But the thing, not to deviate back to like Ingrid, but I think Ingrid like winning the money list is something that needs to be said. Like she didn't just go out there and travel around and everything. Like she did everything she needed to do to move on up. And I think that you know I don't know what that number actually is for wins, but like she will be on the next Solheim Cup team. And so that gives her 2 years to figure this stuff out. But I honestly wouldn't also be surprised if she's not on the international crown team for Sweden next year.
Yeah, she's interesting to me. I I just need to watch her more. I feel like I'm just not as familiar with like how good is her best. I want to know who you guys are selling. Just give me some names selling. I'll start with an easy one. I'm selling Amy Yang. I feel like, you know, won a major this year, near the top 10. I don't expect it to continue. She's a little older.
Yeah, I this pains me to do it, but like, is Leona done? Are her best days behind her?
I think they are.
I think they might
Is that
be.
crazy to say? Because and
No,
then we're
because
gonna
she's a
look at
lot
it and be
older
like,
than
she's not
yeah.
only a lot lower, but she's kind of gonna have like a Poulter thing where they're
Yeah.
only known for team events and like the wins and like showing up when they needed to most
Headwall
just aren't
too.
there.
Headwall.
Yeah,
At least
yeah,
stateside, yeah, Headwall. Guys, I got Jin Young Ko I'm selling. I feel
for
like
sure.
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna be precipitous, but I feel like we're in the we're on the backside of that career.
I'm holding on to Charlie. I'm getting rid of Georgia. I think she is weight that we no longer need in the team house. And I'm sorry. I know we built out a new simulator and fitness center in the backyard, but I don't know if Georgia's got it anymore. I don't know where her head's at these days, TC.
That's fair.
I'm selling on Yuka. I I think it's in there. The 3 top 10s in a season with a win at the US Open, it is truly feast or famine, and I just that bugs me. It's not my kinda golf, you know? So, that's kinda
It's so proper at the US
I
Open.
know, that's the thing.
Yeah,
It's like, how do we like, what happens week to week?
I know. I wonder if it's just a motivation thing. It's very
Or trying to
strange.
be a perfectionist and everything has to sync up at once.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's like figure out how to get the ball in the hole when you don't have your A game because you're only gonna have your A game. Like I was talking to who was I was talking to Russell Henley about this the other day. I was like, how many like rounds a year do you have your A game for? Like your best stuff? He's like, I don't know,
yeah.
maybe like 6. So that's a lot of other rounds that you just got to figure it out, right? You got to tape something together or deal with uncertainty or not know where your miss is going or make a bunch of putts. And like I don't know, I feel like making cuts and banking top 20s is kind of an underrated skill that has been a little bit washed away in the modern program, both men's and women's. Of purses are built such that, it's kind of feast or famine. And if you want to make a lot of money, or you want to, like, you got to maximize your best days, and then, it's
Yeah.
okay if you miss a bunch of cuts. I'm not cool with that. I'm not cool with missing,
Yeah.
10, 15, 20 cuts a year if you're a top 30 player in the world. Like, I,
I
I
agree.
think that your
I
floor should
agree.
be higher. And I think that, modern equipment has made it to where everything's just optimized. And what gets lost in that optimization is grit and grind, and, turning a 73 into a 71, you know?
Yuka might tell you, like, I'm dying to grind more, and these setups, they just won't let me, they won't let me
Couple
grind too
US
deep.
Opens, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
she's kinda
maybe
got
it's
like
like
a Lee Jansen thing
conscientious
going on right
objection.
now, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I think there's a lot more people that we could sell. I know that that breaks our heart, but I just think it's one of those things where we're clearly seeing like this separation of like the top 30 in the world from kind of like the rest. And it's interesting to see it kind of playing out here. They definitely need some consistency. Um, and the last thing that I want to sell is the pace of play on the LPGA Tour as a whole. You got to make some changes here.
Yeah,
It's really really bad. It's hurting not only the play, it's hurting your television product. It's hurting your reputation. Like, be the change, be the leader in the bullpen. Like, take the bull by the horns here and just do something about it. Because when you have your best players, your most marketable players in a Nelly and a Lexi and everyone else, like vocalizing how much it stinks out there, you got to do something about it. All right. And I really hope they do, because it's a great opportunity, not just for them, but for golf and professional golf as a whole.
yeah.
All right. The only other thing that I kind of wanted to run through here is Kari Webb that was announced as an honorary member by the RNA, which I think is pretty sweet. We always forget like how good Kari was. She's, before our time. We almost got her on a live show last year, big, which would have been incredible to
That's
actually
right.
have her join us, but she wasn't able to, or just didn't want to. Who knows?
Kari sounds
But
like a pretty enlightened cat,
Yeah,
talking to people
yeah,
who live down in South Florida, and,
yeah.
see her on the reg.
And back home in Melbourne, she, I think she has a foundation or something there where the players that we know that have come from Australia have come over like on a Kari Webb scholarship, kind of the same thing that Cam Young, or excuse me, not Cam Young, Cam Smith has been doing with the young Aussies. But that's how like Minji afforded to first come over and start playing. Same thing with Hannah Green, because Kari and her foundation gave them money to do it. Um, Joins the list. Other notables here that are honorary members: the Dame Laura Davies,
Of
Ernie
course.
Els, Podrick, Paul Laurie, Katrina Matthew, Rory, Nick Price, Bella Robertson, Annika, and Tiger Woods. So a pretty cool list there, and definitely, deserving of it. Anything else you guys want to cover before we talk about, like, what do we want to do next year, Big? You're kind of the captain of this ship here. Any changes?
We No, I mean, I think any changes, we're gonna try to improve what we do, incremental changes. I don't think there are any huge changes in store. I think from our perspective, this has been a great 2024. It's been a ton of fun to cover the women's game. We've had some eager sponsors that want to support what we do. And I think next year, Cody, to me at least, it's we got a ton of good feedback on the deep dive around the history of the women's open. I would love to honestly turn Jordan loose and
Yep.
task her with producing, and we'll get a handful of those out. I think another thing you and I have talked about is maybe just trying to incorporate a few more interviews or outside voices from time to time on our LPGA more
Marina's got
regular podcasts.
free time.
And then I was gonna say for the live shows, just continue to build out, a stable of people that can come in and help educate us. And now that Marina has retired, I mean, she's top of the list. Of course, Jane Park. So I think continuing to have fun and do the live shows at the biggest events. But yeah, I think it's a lot more of the same with just hopefully getting better and bringing more voices to the people.
Any events you guys are excited for next year? I mean, we're going to some new places. The first time
Yeah.
the women are looking at Erin Hills, um, on the professional side. I think there was a women's pub links there back in the day because I'm pretty sure that's where Tiff John won at. But
Yeah.
Jeff John,
um,
yeah.
yep, it's yeah, it's going to be a great year. I think
Thank you.
outside of Aaron Hills, like I'm just very very excited to go experience some wind in at Porthcawl because I've never been to Wales. I just am very excited to see what it looks like.
Yeah, it sounds like it's pretty remote spot too, not a whole lot out there.
Hmm.
That's one on my list. I think really to get a preview, see how the ladies attack Frisco. I think
Yeah.
that's gonna
Yeah,
be,
Yeah.
pretty interesting, and that's typically, earlier in the season tournament. So,
it's not. It's
is that what,
like
June?
end of June.
Oh, it's end of
Uh,
June. Oh, I was thinking
it's go.
maybe they moved that a couple years ago.
I take that back. Not end of June. It's more like middle of June, but it
Okay.
is people that are used to coming to Texas, there's a reason why, you know, the Schwab is the end of May, and that week is always like blazing hot. Like that's when it's like, oh no, you can't like play golf here anymore. Now this is going to be another 3 weeks post that. It's going to be
Big
so
walk.
hot up there. Oh,
It is a big
Yeah.
walk.
It's
Yeah.
gonna but, again, setup wise, gonna be fascinating because
oh yeah,
I thought, Kerry Haig and the crew, with the PGA of America, like, it took a massive, massive L at Congressional a few years ago, which was a similar thing of, like, a lot of different ways to set it up and not quite knowing how to challenge them, and they overcorrected from day 1 to day 2, and I think it'll be really interesting to see how they set up, uh, Fields Ranch for that. So, and then we got, yeah, no, and then I think otherwise Black Desert, really looking forward to that. I quite enjoyed that tournament, and I think if we're talking about TV product, making that one that, hopefully the TV window is good. Put that on a little bit later on, and it's a really pleasant place to watch golf from. It just looks like, the lava rock and the green and just some really, really engaging short fours and a lot of variety in the par threes. So that's a cool course, and I'm stoked to see the ladies tackle that one.
I don't think I'm gonna make it, but I think it'd be so much fun to go to the International Crown in Korea. That would be a cool one to do.
maybe we got to fire up the vlog boys and take it back. TC.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah,
is it
I
at in
know you're
Korea?
in. It's like
I think
right
it's
outside of Seoul.
yeah, I was gonna say I think it's near Seoul.
Yeah.
We could double up, just stay for the BMW. I think they're back to back, I
They
wanna
are
say.
back to back. Yeah.
Which I wish they'd have the BMW down in, what's the city way down south? They
God, I
they had
don't
the
know my
BMW there a few
Korea
years back.
geography.
The IC is at New Korea Country Club.
Okay.
Busan is down
Yeah.
south. That's where the players play, Randy.
I like that. I like that. But yeah, otherwise,
Randy, you would
agree with
stick
what you
out
guys
like
have said.
such a sore thumb in Korea. Oh my
He's sick.
goodness.
I know. I'm gonna tell people I play for the Denver Nuggets.
So it's literally like northwest of Seoul. Theoretically, like probably still considered Seoul, just right up in the hills that we saw from that very, very tall building that we were in, TC.
Yeah,
Was it the Lotte building or something?
probably between there and the DMZ.
For sure.
So,
We can take yeah. Listen.
one other one, I wanna shout out Jasmine Koo from, I believe, USC. I think she's getting a lot of reports, guys, that we could have a
Mm.
a predator on our hands.
She is
Mm.
an absolute stud.
Yeah,
Yep.
like, it's
Hell
built
yeah.
different kinda thing. So you could be looking at the
It's
next great American golfer.
and it sounds like again, appreciate all the listeners out there. It sounds like the same listener, probably, copy and pasting reports here via via the DMs to TC and I. We love
Oh,
it all.
I've gotten a few. It's probably the same one there, but like I think, from her club where she grew up or whatever.
Yep.
But talking to other people as well. Yeah. Predator tendencies.
Well, I think that does it. In typical NLU LPGA fashion, we made it 2 hours somehow. And I don't know. Any parting thoughts, Big? Like I said, this is your show.
We'll see what happens with the commissionership. We have, I would tell people enjoy the Grant Thornton this weekend, and we'll be back sometime in January, late January, to do a season preview pod. But honestly, it's kind of nice to have a little bit of an off season here. So
Yeah.
we can put this season to rest, and there'll be plenty to talk about in 2025.
Absolutely. All right. Cheers, guys.
See ya.